Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is a-trak, and we have...
My name is Armand Van Helden.
That's right. Together we are Duck Sauce. We got a fun little show for you guys today. Thanks for tuning in. First and foremost, we're going to get into the important stuff, cooking, right? So without further ado, for no reason at all, we're going to tell each other about something that we cooked. Right? No, you do a little intro here. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, we got a little thing.
We need that little box thing that you hit.
Oh.
The little thing.
The samples.
Fool's gold.
Put the sauce on it.
So yeah, we've been locked in at home. 2020 is different from many other years. I've never cooked this much in my life. I never knew I could cook. I feel like I've always been afraid to cook. But I've been here at the crib, and actually, Armand, I wanted to tell you about, I've been using my grill. That's a whole...
You're turning into a grill master. Yes?
I'm turning into a grill master, and I'm discovering, what works on it. I'm already at the point where I've bought accessories for the grill. Like I have like a little oil surfaces that I put on the grill if I'm doing seafood. So, but actually what I wanted to tell you about today was I got a skirt steak thing that I've been doing on the grill that has been pretty nice. So this skirt steak that I order, it comes as it almost looks like a tongue. I want to say like it's one long thing. You know how it comes in a little styrofoam thing and it's like wrapped. So when I open up the packaging, I just kind of like it's one long tongue vibe, and I cut it up in a couple things. Using this grill is so easy. I barely have to do anything. And one of my cheats that I discovered, apparently a lot of people know about this. I'm from Montreal. There's a thing called Montreal steak spice. Apparently the whole world knows about this. I'm late to the party. I only learned about it. It's been a big hit for a couple of years, I guess. You can even I put it on salmon last night. You can put it on fish. You can put it on steak. So my little skirt steak that I get from Gelson's out here, I put Montreal steak spice on it. It's super thin. So the one thing that I had to learn is that it really doesn't take a lot of time to cook.
But keep the fire low.
Yeah, keep the fire. I don't even really know what I'm doing. I just know that this thing works. Where I put the fire maybe at medium. I'll do and so you know how there's obviously the main level of the grill, but then there's a top level too. On the main grill, I'll do 3 minutes on one side, flip it over another 3 minutes, move it up to the second floor of the grill, and I leave it on there for maybe one more minute, just for a little bit more cooking, and that's it. 6 or 7 minutes with the Montreal steak spice. This is my recipe. I'm done. That's it, and it's one of the best things I've been making during quarantine. That's awesome.
That's cool.
What you got?
So I've been doing actually this for a number of years, probably for the past 8 years or so. Again, me and you are very similar in our cooking styles. We kind of throw shit down quick and want fast results, and we're cooking, but we want it to be delicious and be almost gourmet, but we don't want to actually put in all the effort. You know what I'm saying? Right? Yeah. So I was taught by various people, P-Thug included. By the way, P-Thug is a Italian aficionado. P-Thug from Chromeo, he would destroy Italian. Incredible. He actually sat with me in my place in New York and showed me how to make a red sauce from scratch. I'll never forget it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that was something. My thing is this: with Italian food, it's about the quality of the ingredients. It's probably actually the top. I do buy high-end pastas that you would get at Italy in New York. There's a place down here in Miami. It's called Fresh Market, and they actually sell some the higher, straight from Italy import type pastas. Where when you look at the noodles, they almost look like they have baby powder on them. That I make sure I get the high-end pasta, and then number one is the high-end olive oil. The number one thing is the olive oil is the key. Good olive oil, good pasta. And then lastly, this is the weird one. All these companies make bottled red sauce, right? But there is one bottled red sauce company that is actually really good, which is called Rouse. And Rouse is that Italian chain, that's in Vegas, and in various places. It's basically like this. I don't even do anything. What I do is I get the water going. So I just literally just get the water going. Then as long as you have the expensive olive oil, the expensive pasta, I do the rouse at the very end. The thing with the red sauce is, let's just say I'll use the whole thing and I just dump it in a saucepan. You do it at the very end when the pastas are done or just about to be done, because you just want to heat, because the sauce is already cooked. So you don't want to cook it and simmer it more, because then it takes all the flavor out. So you just literally want to heat it up. You just want to get it like, I'll just put it on almost like 8 or 10 just to get it hot for a second. And then I just shut it down. You got the boiled pasta, you strained it. I actually put the boiled pasta back in the bowl that it was boiled in, kind of, it's a hood thing. Yeah. And then I take the saucepan, put the rouse, and I just drop it on top. And I might have a bit of the little balls, the mozzarella balls like that. They come in like a little pint-sized plastic container, and those, and I'll throw those in. They melt kind of as you're doing this. Hefty on the expensive olive oil, red pepper, and I literally just stir. I get a big spoon, I just tilt it to the side, and I just stir the whole thing all together, just like this, like just stirring it in the same pot I boiled the noodles in. Dump it onto a plate, and it's pretty good.
It tastes right.
It works. So
all right,
yeah,
I love it.
Now we're going to move on to a-trak and I's horoscopes. A-trak is a wonderful and beautiful fiery Aries.
Thank you, sir.
Aries is the start of the Zodiac for a reason. I'm not even reading this, but I can tell you offhand that Aries, they are catalysts to action. A-trak put the fire underneath me, and that's why we're a duo, because I'll be too lackadaisical, and A-trak will be like, yo, let's do this, let's do that. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do that, So Aries are known for that. Aries make things happen. If you're able to be in the company of an Aries, you're in good company. So anyway, it can be difficult to really express yourself, so hard to fully live within all the limits the world has set up for you. In a truly free world, you could be fiery, brave, unstoppable. But in the world as it actually exists, it's so hard to use the gifts you've been given. This week, you might feel hopelessly frustrated by this reality, but it isn't a week to concede defeat or shrink yourself in the hopes that doing so will make living easier. Instead, it's a week to get louder and bolder, a week to recommit to real freedom. Good week for you, man.
Thank you.
Hopefully I get a positive one.
Let's see what we got for you here. So, my duck mate Armand is in Aquarius. We are a wonderful, compatible match ducks. Let's see what the stars have for you in the pond. This is a week for trying to make some kind of peace with the sense that your life doesn't look the way you thought it would, that the old world has suddenly shifted, and that all your plans have been shaken out of alignment. There's sadness in this, but it's your job to remember that all this change comes with freedom too, with a vast and wild new range of possibilities. It once seemed like the future was already written, but now it's been set free again. There's space to rebel, space to refuse, space to rebuild the universe.
That is completely on point.
Yeah.
I feel like that's been completely on point for the past year or so, but that is completely on point.
The stars have spoken. Yeah, well, exactly. You can shape the world as you see fit. It's time for Duck Talk. We've got my favorite hip-hop producer of all time, DJ Premier, the Don, I would say.
And mine.
And yours, right? Like, I would say Preem is the definition of rugged, hardcore East Coast hip hop, the most classic shit. He is the author of that sound.
Rugged with class.
Rugged with class.
It's like a classy rugged.
So I will say this, in Duck Sauce, I think we tend to go for a certain simplicity in our production, which is tough. It's hard to find the catchy simple or the original simple. And I think Preem perfected that with hip hop. He was kind of the originator of that. And he's got a signature sound. Good friend of both of ours. He blessed us with some crazy stories. So without further ado, DJ Premier. Just the boys having a chat. That's it.
Let's do it.
Gifted Pearl. Works of Mart.
Both.
Works of Mart.
Gifted Pearl the publishing. That's the recipe to my mom, Pearl. And Works of Mart, because my last name is Martin.
Martin.
And I've always been into clever names, and so Works of Mart was perfect.
I mean, we can even start this off by saying, I think both Armand and I are, the DJs that read the credits on the records. So when when I see you, I think of those names. So man, thank you for being on here with us. This is literally just the three of us having a conversation.
This is a hangout when it comes to
hangout.
Yeah, this is a hangout. A-trak, you were the baby of the bunch, but the first time we saw you spin, we're like, this motherfucker is dope. Because you were just doing all the battle stuff, and you were so little, and I don't know if you were standing on a box to touch the thing, but you was going off like straight hardcore battle style, and we respect that because I'm not a battle DJ, so I think I scratch creatively. But all the stuff y'all do, and you're jumping on tables and doing stuff with your feet. And I've seen you do just crazy stuff, even at your age now. You're jumping up. We started getting more EDM type of gigs. I'm like, this motherfucker's jumping on top, and the crowd's going crazy. Like that's still a battle element of battle DJing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's a performer mentality. I think even though the gem thing, it's like. Certain DJs, especially in the disco tradition, would be like in the dark corner of the booth. The crowd couldn't see them back in the day. But I like the style of DJing where it's like, hey, I'm going to give you a show, and control that energy.
Yeah, I used to be a guy for years. Y'all know I'm not being loud and just boisterous on the mic on stage. And MOP was like, yo, you need to be the hype man for Guru. I know you got Gordon doing it and everything, but you need to do it because you're a DJ. And he said, all the rhymes because DJs usually know lines from records, which obviously you do because you battle with the lines you cut.
Yep.
Back in the day. So you want those, take it, such and destroy it, destroy it, all that. So, but that's you knowing rap lyrics. To know, so-and-so said that line, that's a hard line. I'd cut that up and kill another DJ in a battle, so we know a lot of lyrics and stuff aside from just our skill as DJs, producers, and just even the way how we listen to shit,
Yeah.
So that's why I said, let me, we went on tour in 99 on the Full Clip album to open up for Rage Against the Machine. And when I saw that crowd, we had to change all of our songs around because Mass Appeal wasn't working.
Right.
Certain records. So, but Brainstorm was working and Guns.
Tons of Guns. Hell yeah.
Just everything that was more dark, they were with it. And then by the 5th show, we were out for a month. It just turned into us just killing it every night. That's when I said, from now on, I'm going to yell and be. It's the way I've always felt, but I was too shy to do it on the mic and on stage. Now it's like, Primo, shut up, play the record.
I feel like the first time I really heard your voice, even on a record, was the skit on Moment of Truth. What's the deal with you break record cats?
Because I was bitching about it. And because I was getting sued by so many people that Guru was like, yo, record that. And so I just did it in one take, and he was like, yo, that's it.
It's funny, once I heard your voice on there, because I don't think we had met then yet, but once that showed me what your voice was, and then I would go back and listen to older records, and I remember listening to Superstar, Group Home, and being that part where you go, Superstar, I'd be like, I think that's him too. I was like picking out your voice.
The first person to know that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you're a DJ.
Well, you know what? I had an idea actually for the first question I wanted to ask you, and it's kind of in relation to what we're talking about here with sample clearance and stuff. So I feel like even though you've been around for years and years, and a lot of your earlier productions might have been loop-based, sort of like Step in the Arena era was a lot of loops. But I think nowadays, if you ask most people what's the typical Primo style, it's the sample chops, right? Like that. So that's, I feel like you've always been the king of those sample chops. And there's something, I always had an impression of, or like an inkling of something that I wanted to verify with you. When you started really chopping shit up, like, 1,000,001 questions kind of chops and that shit, was that a way to get around sample clearance? Or was that just creativity? Or was it both?
Both. Even chopping and stuff, I got from Showbiz because he was doing it so early with the way he was chopping his drums when they dropped the EP to Soul Clap, the Soul Clap EP. And he had a record on there called Catch and Wreck, and the way he had the drums going boom boom cat boom cat boom cat boom, and just the way you could tell they were cutting each other off, and I'm like, yo, how do you do that? And he showed me how. He's like, yo, make the outputs the same, and then when you make the outputs the same, they'll cut each other off based off the pad you hit. I'm like, oh wow. It's like you know what you want to interpret, but you got to be shown how to do it. He was already doing it, so when I saw him do that, then like you said with sample clearance, it was like I was already using an MP and an S950, so we were already just limited to 60 seconds, which is not a lot. So you know, it had to be creative with just that little bit anyway. But now to dance around the clearances, I was like, yo, not every record has to be like that, but it's nothing wrong with revisiting that style. If you're doing an album, 3 of them out of 10 songs can have that style, and then go to a loop joint, then go to one where you're playing the actual instruments, you know, with no looping. But that was one of the things I did to the dance around stuff at that time, because I was getting just claims left and right for people that were actually saying that's what it was. And this is before the internet, you know. So
I mean, what you did, The Question Remains, was crazy. That was like, I feel like that.
You know what's so crazy about that, about Question Remains? We went on tour the next day to Europe, and we had just shot Suckers Knee Bodyguard video the day before that.
Yeah.
Which is why it's the B-side. And we, you know, I'm into new wave and punk and all that, and they used to always have unreleased or unavailable on LP on a 12-inch. I'd buy imports and Prince imports, and he'd have another song that's not on the album. And I'm like, yo, then Public Enemy started doing it, and everybody had B-sides. I was like, yo, if I ever get on, I want to do that and have a record that's not on the album, so people are like, yo. Yeah, so that's what Dwick was. That was just an unavailable B-side. It popped off, and we ended up putting it on Hard to Earn because they wouldn't put it on Daily Operation, which we told them, please put it on there, because everybody's buying Daily Operation going, where's Dwick at? It's not on there. B-side, you know, just not the pop. You know, we didn't know it was going to be that big. We just did it just for the fun and love of it. But that's what I did. I like this. I call them, we call them stabs as well. But, that was one of the things just on the creative side that I figured more limits, okay, more creativity. And that's more limiting when you got to avoid the looping version. You know? Well,
the thing that I always thought was incredible with a lot of your sample chops in particular is that not only would you change the melody, but you would change the mood of the track. Because even with that example with Question Remains, if you listen to the sample and then the beat you made out of it, it goes from a happy, like almost elevator music, you know, slick jazz pop song to the hardest beat. And, you know, I just literally a few months ago, I just came across the sample for Full Clip, which I don't know if I got to keep my mouth shut on that one or if that's known, but you tell me.
It's okay. If you look it up, it's around, but okay. But I will always say
it's on who sampled who.
Yeah,
man.
It's like I'll always say, what record is that again?
You're like,
I don't know
who made that. But on that one again, like the fact that the song, the original, is a standard. Where I heard it and I was like, it's this record, and it was it's such a breezy, happy vibe in the original. And then you made it so hard. To me, that's what's really bugged out, is how you can change the mood of a joint in the way that you manipulate it.
That's all DJ shit to me, man. That's my approach. That's DJ shit.
Yeah.
Every approach, I think, like the DJ thing. Same thing with cutting. I'm doing that so the DJ would go, yo, you ain't cut that, because when I'd hear Terminator X or a Jam Master Jay cut, or just even the way they would bring it in, it's like, yo, man, Marley scratches and stuff like that. Mixmaster Ice from UTFO.
Yeah.
Like, yo, I want people to go, because I'll imitate their scratch when that part comes on. If it goes, I'll just sit there and do it until I'm to the T exactly like them. So I said, well, let me be a little intricate too, so other DJs will go, yo, I like the way he cuts, you know?
I mean, yeah, that's bugged out. I don't even know if I ever told you this, but when you're talking about the history and shit, for me, just with my sort of age group and where I come into the story, I got into hip hop in like 93 or so, and 93, 94. And
late as a motherfucker.
What's up?
Late as a motherfucker.
I know. So I had to do my homework. And one of the first albums that I got in 94 was Return to Boom Bap. And I would listen to Outta Here so much. And the way that KRS talks about old school or, older generation rappers, because he's talking about rappers who fell off, that gave me a history lesson. That told me who to go and listen to. Do you know what I mean? So I was listening to KRS's verses and I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember hearing about Public Enemy, or I remember hearing about, so-and-so, but whoever he was naming, I'd be like, let me go and do my homework and understand those records better.
Right.
So for me, it was really like you and Pete Rock, the records that you guys put out around those years, 93, 94, like by listening to Pete Rock, he was scratching on Biz Markie so much that made me go and listen to Biz Markie records.
Yeah.
By listening to your records,
all the good parts. I was like, got that.
Yeah.
I remember the day that we were with Large Professor and they was talking about doing a remix to Ain't Hard to Tell, and being that Biz says, I'm highly recognized as the king of going. He goes, I want to make it where it goes Nas, because he said, if you cut it right at recognized. And I was like, that would be dope. And all of a sudden he did the remix and that popped off. Yeah. It was like I was around all that to see, still learning from Large. Showbiz and I feel like we equally came out at the same time.
Same generation.
But he taught me, like I said, he taught me the chopping segment. And then Pete Rock would show me, let me show you how you filter and beef it up underneath record and make it thick. I was like, that's what you're doing. And once you learn it, I'll do it, but we still do it where we're not biting. We still value the non-bite aspect of everything to this day. I'll be like, somebody might bring something up to me, go, you could program with this or do this. No, that's too much of a bite. Like it'll still affect me to not want to be in bite territory. That won't work. One more thing that I'm going to back up on the question remains. I had a sealed copy, and then that one, when I moved to New York, a lot of my records got damaged in the rain because I didn't have a cover on my truck. Shout out to Rock, who was our dancer, who rode with me the whole way. And I've always had those boxes, still do. And I said, let me go through and see anything salvageable. That one just had all that water stain on it. That's why it's all. And then when I started chopping it, I said, it sounds dope with all the water stains. I said, let me do it with the clean. So I have two versions of it that I have to give you the clean version.
Oh, man.
It don't even sound as good. Because
what's crazy is I can hear just as you're talking, like to me, the dust on the sample of Question Remains, it's on beat and it's part of what makes it. It's like,
when I did it with the clean version that was sealed, it didn't even have the same flavor. Looped it exactly the same. And because now you don't hear the boom, boom. Yeah, so I said, let's stick with the grimy one.
That's crazy.
That night and went on tour for a month.
That's crazy. I mean, even how like the version of Impeach the President that's on Ultimate Breaks and Beats has a little crackle on the kick. And you can always tell when someone sampled Impeach off of the Ultimate Breaks because it's got the Yep. Yeah. Well, me and Armand were talking a little bit earlier today. Armand, I know you were talking about Marley Marl samples and shit, right?
Oh yeah. Well, what it was is I was just trying to, I just wanted to kind of get a question on your history, because I think me and you are somewhat in the same age bracket. So, we grew up with obviously the beginning of rap, from Rapper's Delight on, you name it, even the earlier records. But what I want to know, because, rap for me for a large part of the early 80s was drum machines, you know what I mean? Drum machines and synthesizers and stuff like that. So Marley Marl, I feel, was probably one of the first, or if not the first, to kind of start to incorporate sampling, correct?
Yeah, him, Mantronics.
Mantronics, of course. Yeah,
Mantronics was kind of doing the stabs early, just
Yeah. And so who were, when you decided, like your very first, DJ Premier at the time, or whatever the case, who inspired you back in that era? Because I feel like
producers.
What's this?
Producers.
Producers, yeah. Like what I'm saying is I know Marley Marl was a bit before you. Was that like your go-to guys? Like whatever he's doing, I want to try and figure that out.
Yeah, he was my go-to. It was like I got to figure that out.
Oh, okay.
Then we were so into Def Jam, just everything that LL was doing and the Beastie Boys and the way everything. The 808 always just went with the pattern, boom, 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 or slow and low, boom, to boom, 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 boom. You know, but Marley didn't make the music and said boom. We're like, what the fuck?
No, it was the same for me. When Marley,
there.
Is it true?
Right.
I had an experience.
Why did he put it there?
Yeah. So I had an experience for me where when I was growing up with hip hop, where like let's say the Paid in Full album came out, right?
Yeah.
Where it was so different in a sense for what else was happening. So you still had at that time, like LL and Run. Everybody was still yelling, and it was all high 808s and drum machines, and it was just still like electronic hip hop relatively. There was slow ones like Pee Wee Herman and stuff, but relatively it was kind of upbeat and a lot of yelling. And then when Rakim came out, it was that Paid in Full record. Did that change? For me, it felt like, firstly, I didn't like it. Like the first time I heard Paid in Full, I was like, Rakim sounds so like, he sounds like he's falling asleep. And then, and the drums are like, what is this music like? It sounds like old 60s music. I'm like, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I like it, because we were kind of so stuck in that one style of rap.
Right.
But then I came around like 3 months later, and I'm like, oh my God, forget everything I said. This is where it's at now, you know? So I don't know. Did that happen to you the same way?
I was in college, about to move to New York. So my boy worked at the record store and got all the latest 12 inches. And then two of my buddies that I actually used to live with when I was shopping my deal, I lived with his family. Shout out to the Franklin family, Gordon and Gary, and rest in peace to their father Arden, and shout out to Marilyn, their mom. They let us live with them while I shopped the deal, you know, because my grandfather had passed, so couldn't live there, and they let us stay with them. But all I remember is that year before we left, when we saw that Derek B for President 12-inch and My Melody, and plus his brother Gary had just come to school, so he had just taped the latest Mr. Magic, Rap Attack, and Red, and Chuck Chill Out. So we were just like, what is this? Yeah, we never heard anybody rap like that, you know. But like, it was all the punchlines and everything. It's like you could see everything he was saying. So we heard My Melody first, and then we heard President.
Yeah.
Just you know, from the Funky President. I was like, no, what the fuck?
Yeah, I was the same for me. It was crazy for me as well. Yeah,
man, I was just blind. And then seeing Marley name again, and shit. We're like, oh man, you bought anything that had Marley on it, Def Jam, even hearing Tila Rock for the first time, It's Yours. Otis Curtis, he's one of my OG homies in my hood when I was in Texas. He was the first one really with a booming a truck full of all woofers in the whole back of the truck. So he didn't want to put me on to 808 sound. Like he'd be like, yo, check out this sound. And he'd crank it up, and we would Slow and Low was the first one we heard the 808 that heavy. Yeah. And when Holding Now Hit It came, he pulled up one day in the hood and say, yo, when this record comes on, get ready to duck. And we're like, what do you mean? He said, just watch. And then did the Holding Now Hit It. He's like, get ready. No, yo, Leroy, yo, but then, you know, all right, right about now. Well, as soon as it said chill, he ducked down, and we're looking like, yo, because the whole truck rattled the whole street. We were like, yo, we got to find out what is making that sound.
That's cool.
And then I heard it was an 808. We saved our money and got one, because we were like, we got to be able to do something too. Fuck it. We didn't even care anymore about the rest of the record. It had to have 808.
Yeah. But you predominantly use the 808 for the kick, right? You didn't really use, in your productions, I don't remember using anything but the kick and almost like as a bass line.
Well, on Step in the Arena, I was 808 heavy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The whole album
Okay.
is. It actually listen to it now. I'm like, damn, I wish I could have scaled back a little bit. But, you know, but back then we just wanted. It was about that 808 hitting, man. I wanted to sound like anything. All Def Jam records had it. And, and then, like I said, when Marley came and then moved it and didn't do it on every kick, we're like, yo, even on Nobody Beats the Biz, just all of it just had a different position. And we were like, yo, this dude's different. And then, like I said, Mantronics was one of the first ones I'm hearing just the stabs, like on Cold Getting Dumb. But, you know, bam, bam. And then Just Ice just told me recently that the reason why, you know how he goes, it kind of slows down. Yeah. They couldn't get it to sync right. So they would just, Mantronics was just stopping it, boom. And sometimes he might be a little off, but he was doing it live.
That's dope.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow, those are stories I love to hear.
That's cool.
Hell yeah.
Well, we got to segue. We should segue here into Todd Terry. So we have we had Todd a bit ago, and
wow, that's my dude, man.
So Todd told us a story. We just want to. We're not. This isn't like I guess a thing to, you know. We just want to confirm it, I guess. But Todd was telling us early on that he was kind of brought you in to introduce. What was the exact thing, Alan? What did he said?
That he brought you into D&D Studios.
Yeah, the D&D. Yeah,
Showbiz brought me in.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Showbiz brought me in because he was doing Return of the Funky Man remix for Lord Finesse. He said, come down here and do the scratches. So that's me scratching on the 12-inch version.
Okay.
I go in and do the session. Show said he can't stay long. So he said, can you get the final mix and just bring it to me later on? Because we used to always either share cars. He'll have an 850 Beamer. I'll have the new 5 with all every foreign car I had always had a manual stick. No, just park reverse. Every car I've had that was foreign was stick manual shift.
Real shit only.
Popping the clutch and like Showbiz can drive. I can drive. Like we're nasty behind the wheel. You know, if we're in race mode, if we're chilling, obviously we're good too. But we used to boogie on the highway. You can't catch us. No way. You know,
hit the emergency brake in the rain, right?
We're getaway car guys for real.
Yeah.
But that was in, and this is now. But yeah, now I did a session there with Nikki Nicole years ago, who was part of our management team, and I never went back. And I don't know if I knew Todd back then, which would have been 90. But if it's after that, definitely Showbiz. Did the scratches, and then Eddie Sancho was their in-house engineer that you have to pay for the engineer as well. Being an employee. Yeah. I get the mix. I had a MPV, the 1990 version, because I saw Biz, shout to Biz, get well. Biz had one. He was in front of Music Factory. I was like, what is that? He said, this is a Mazda MPV. I'm like, Mazda makes vans. And when I get my budget, man, I'm buying one of those. And maybe 4 or 5 months later, we got our budget for Step in the Arena. I bought one immediately off the lot and then put a Bowman system in it. And everybody knew me in Brooklyn for having a dope system. Master Ace always talks about it. He even put it in his credits for the when Snigger and all that came out. Yeah.
Like sitting on Chrome, that album?
Everybody knows my van in New York. If you were around that era, Fat Joe and them will tell you I was the guy. During that time, I popped the cassette in to make sure it sounded good before I give it to show. And I'm like, yo, this shit sounds different. And just the mix was so good. I was like, we were just gotten our budget for daily operation, which we were going to do a Calliope because we just stepped in the arena there. Okay. And we did a part of it in Firehouse and Such a Sound, where I started my career in Brooklyn. But the majority of the album was done in Calliope. Once I heard how good it was sounding D&D, I'm like, yo, this is where we're doing the album. I remember the owner of Calliope tried to shit on me and rub my name because he's like, yo, you were going to work here. But I'm like, yeah, but I can see if I gave him the money up front and now I'm like, give me the money back. We hadn't even started that stage of it. So if I'm going to choose to go somewhere else, you got an album out of us and you got your money. So what's the big deal? We're not going to work here now. So so that's how I ended up at D&D because of just that mix. And I said, I want that guy all the time in my sessions. And then from there,
and that was Eddie Sancho, right?
MPC. Yeah, Eddie Sancho put me on the MPC. He said, yo, you're laying I had an Alessis at the time, and I was triggering the 950 because King of Chill taught me how to work the 950 at his mom's house. I used to go to his mom's house. I did X-Girl and X-Girl at King of Chill's house. Shout out to the King of Chill, who's actually in the other room.
And that beat had the 950 filter in it. Yeah.
So with that, from there I went to D&D, and then rest in peace to Lyle Leet, who was our engineer from Calliope, because I said, well, you come work with us because you already have a vibe with us. And he would work with us at D&D. And then once Eddie showed me how to work that MPC, I was like, nah, I'm using MPC now. And I bought Eddie's. And then from there, eventually Eddie left D&D, and I said, well, I still want you to be my engineer for my sessions. And that's how we built a bond, and we started knowing each other's vibe. And I still lay all my stuff, even when I do vocals in the middle, starting from track 17. That's because Eddie always starts at track 17 to put a in. Drums and all that to the left, other instruments to the right, but track 17 is the lead vocal or whoever's going first.
That's crazy.
That's how I still set my shit up.
That's funny.
So
Preem, when you started using the MP60, were you still using the S950 too? Like, were you using both of them together?
Yeah, I didn't know how to sample with it. I still don't know how to sample. We just talked about an Alchemist. You said,
I feel like you told me this.
Who's the first person to ever sample with an MPC by itself, the 60?
I don't know.
He told me to find out. He heard that's Jermaine Dupri. I'm calling him Dupri. I'm going to ask him, is he the one?
So when you were using the MPC 60, you were using it as a sequencer, right? You were still sampling on the 950.
Right.
So I feel like you told me this a while back, and I couldn't believe it because your drums, like, you're known to having drums that knock so much. And I think everyone assumes that you sample your drums on the MPC. I don't think anybody knew that you. So your drums are on
the one I have now, the Renaissance. Yeah.
Sure, but like all the sort of classic quote unquote primo joints, those drums are on the S950. Yeah. And then Eddie Sancho does what he does to
the pads and the side, on the side.
Yeah, I think even there's so many, like, you know how it was even in the 90s when the only information you had would be like a picture in a magazine or some shit. Like, people have seen so many pictures of you over the MPC 60. Everybody assumed that you.
How I do it, unless you're here. Like, if y'all were here, I'll show y'all. But
everyone assumed that you were sampling on the MPC.
I had somebody the other day that said they wanted to do a Zoom and you would create a beat right there on the spot. I said, yeah, I'll do it as long as there's no cameras on. And they were like, well,
right.
You know what? The closest thing to showing me even just messing around a little bit is the Nike classic video. That's the closest, and because the Rakim is the only one that showed up, which is why we're in the video together.
Oh shit!
In the video, because Kanye's somewhere else, Chris somewhere else, and Nas is somewhere else. But me and Rakim were together.
Yeah.
And even that day is the day I posted a few weeks back. It's a picture of me giving Rakim his Gangstar plaque because he was on the remix of Militia Part 2. And Dub C, shout to Dub. And I was like, damn, it's hard to get in touch with Ra. So I was like, yo, he's coming to the video shoot. I could finally give him his plaque. He was the only one that didn't get his, and gave him the full clip plaque.
That's crazy. But by the way, when you and Rakim did, it's been a long time. I feel like a lot of people sampled that hi-hat. I'm going to say there was an open hi-hat that was ripped from your hi-hat. And I think a lot of people sampled specifically that
Havoc hi-hat I took from Havoc.
Let's talk about. So you know what, Preem? I wanted to ask you this. Oh wow, okay. I wanted to ask you this. So again, I grew up in the era where DJs and producers were getting the blueprint from you. We're getting, listening to people like yourself and sort of getting the codes, like the unwritten rules of hip hop, just from what you were producing. And I grew up in Montreal, and I remember conversations with other producers in Montreal where, for us, producers weren't sort of allowed to sample drums from another hip hop producer. You were supposed, like, we thought that you were supposed to go to the original breakbeat.
Right.
It would be cheating to grab a Havoc hi-hat or something.
And then start making your shit.
So, and I was one, how sometimes when you go, like Montreal being in Canada, obviously being a little bit further outside of New York, I feel like sometimes when you go to another country, people take the rules almost too seriously. Like you might go to Europe and people take the real hip hop shit even further than America. You know what I mean? So I kind of wonder if, like, even to you in those days, like, was there rules like that, or were you just kind of grabbing whatever?
I think it's like you said, an unwritten one.
Yeah.
And I purposely, that's one of the reasons why I always wanted to make sure that if you played the vocal version, you couldn't really get much off of it because I didn't want nobody to snatch the open parts. But shout out to Marco Polo, who's told me that he said, I used to look for you the parts. Grab that part.
So we all sampled your drums.
And back then, if in the early days, you'd be like, no, that's not how you're supposed to do it, but I do it. Like I just said, I think that hi-hat is just a shorter truncation of Havoc's, because who didn't take Havoc's hi-hat from Shook One's Part 2?
I mean, Havoc always had good hi-hats. I feel like when he did Murder Music, his hi-hat game went to a whole other level too.
Yeah. That was a great album too, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Havoc's just one of my favorites. And we were around each other when I worked on Peer Pressure. We were hanging.
That's right, of course.
Yeah. So we were always together a lot. Me, him, and Pete. We'd be up in Long Island and at D&D a lot.
Yeah. That's crazy. I actually wanted to touch on something that you mentioned earlier. So I remember many years ago when Malcolm McLaren passed, you had your radio show even back then, and you did a whole episode dedicated to Malcolm McLaren and kind of explaining his lineage and what his contributions to music. And you were like talking on the mic as you were mixing and telling a lot of stories and explaining the background of like that era, the early 80s, when punk and hip hop were sort of like colliding and rubbing shoulders. And I found it really fascinating to learn about how much other genres that you knew about. And there's other times I've heard you speak since then where, you even mentioned earlier that those sort of new wave 12 inches that had different mixes on them. You mentioned that earlier. So like, what can you tell us even just a little bit about like when you were growing up? I think people would assume that you listen to soul and funk and whatever else, but like, what's the other shit that you were into?
Yeah, the soul and funk is in any black households, or Negro household, melanated household, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot going around now with everything going on with this world we're living in. But in our household, it's kind of automatic, Right. Like I remember a long time ago, I was with Alchemist back when he made the Meet We Gonna Make It beat, and he had asked me, was I hip to like Barry White, Now Green, all these albums? Because you have the digging aspect where we dig for albums. But I told him a lot of these albums are just standard in our home. Barry White's gonna be in every black home.
So that's a given.
Anything Motown, it's just automatic. But and obviously there's those rare things, but. With rock and all that, I have two older sisters. One of my sisters would put me on to like Carly Simon and more the Eagles and all that stuff. She was into that more, but then my other sister was into the real funky stuff, like like different from stuff I grew up. But I always listen to whatever my mother listened to, and because she's a painter, so everybody in our neighborhood. I was just right before this talking to y'all, just on the phone with my other sister, and she's like, "Yo." I said, how many paintings you got of mom's? She goes, 10. I'm like, you got 10? I never got mine. She goes, yeah, well, I got married. I wanted to do this. I wanted to. And they all got all these paintings, and everybody in the neighborhood knows my mother for being one of the dopest painters out there. She used to always paint and play records, and she's like, don't you touch the top of the record, hold it from the side. If I see one fingerprint, you getting your ass beat. Like, this is real shit. Don't touch. You gotta hold it like this. Yeah, exactly. So so look what we do. Putting your fingers on it to rub the record, like all of that is my upbringing. So and then I played football in my younger years. In junior high, you start hearing rock because now when you're into sport and stuff with your friends, some of your white friends in school are into Styx and Van Halen and AC/DC, and I'm like, yo, this shit is dope because the music was felt. It wasn't like that's a white boy music or none of that shit. None of that even crossed. That's dope. And when you're on teams, basketball, football, whatever, baseball, you start to have a friendship with other people that you didn't even grow up with because you're a brotherhood. That music is now in the locker room, and then we're going to the concert. You want to go? Hell yeah. Go to the concert and see how they play. It's like, damn, Iron Maiden is fucking crazy dope.
Yeah.
Oh, there goes Eddie the Mummy. He's a mummy. Eddie's always, if you know Iron Maiden.
Of course.
Is there a hand up? How many people know Iron Maiden?
I love Maiden. Trooper.
Sam?
Trooper's my joint. Right. Yeah.
And learning about the story of Eddie.
Yeah, you got to know the story of Eddie.
Yeah, and one day at our show, he died and came back as a mummy. So the mummy came on stage. You remember Eddie was huge on stage of that monster, the mechanical thing that they had. Yeah. I was just like, yo, this stuff is dope. Then it made me just want. Then our quarterback was into Sammy Hagar, and just because Sammy Hagar loved red, he bought a red Camaro, and we'd ride with him to go to school, buy concert tickets, everything, and he's always hold the steering wheel and play it like this. To where I do it now. Every time I drive, I rush. I'm just going because shout out to Brody Hoppers because Brody used to do it all the time. And I come from the Texas aspect of going to the mall. Like in high school, it's going to the mall. You want to see all the girls. You want to have the fly new shit that you bought. Walking with bags. Like I said, popping tags wasn't even a word back then. And all of that trickled into me too. And then again, my mother liked jazz. So she put me on the Stanley Turrentine and Charlie Mingus and all that type of stuff, Max Roach on drums. So all of that. So I was like, yo, I like everything. I like country music because I'm from a town where country music heavy. And everybody's not that way, but I think it's very good for you to be versatile with what you listen to. That as long as it's felt in your soul, it's official. I felt every single thing.
What about any disco or let's just say house music? Is there any connection? Do you have because I feel like when you started late 80s, that's right when hip house was big, right? Yeah. Even in New York at the time. Mm-hmm. So do you have any? What's your history? Do you have any issue with that stuff?
I didn't learn house until I moved here. But shout to my man Skeet, and he was in a group called Total Science. You remember Total Science? They had a couple of records that they were from Brooklyn. They had one song called Total Science, and it popped off, more locally. This back on the Garage was popping and stuff like that. And it was right around the time right before Craig Kalman started Big Beat, and he had Jamanda, and Craze was like the biggest record at the time. Everybody and hip hop hardcore dudes was going to all the house spots, and hip hop and house was in the same clubs. And the Hard Rocks loved it for that. You would definitely.
I love that era. I love that era. Yeah.
I used to see, and you'd be at all the Armin used to be at all the fucking hot spots. You saw we have a Scully pulled down, you know what I'm saying? And everybody knew you. You walked in the place, you were saluted by so many people. You know what I'm saying? Because I used to go to Riz to party.
What's funny is me and you many times. That's not your brother. I was going to mention this too. Was that many times? You're right. We would be in those certain loops in New York, and a lot of remember industry parties in New York. It was like a thing, like on a Tuesday night at like 9, and we would. From me and Premier, me and Premier had met. I believe we had relatively met through Eddie Sancho.
Okay,
I think that was our first connection. And then I think you were with Kenny Dope. You were with Kenny Dope a lot too on certain occasions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so
and Todd too, because Todd was around.
And Todd, and Todd too. And so we would be trying to get into these spots, and I can't tell you how many times. I don't know if you remember this, that we would be the crew that didn't get in. And so me and you would start chopping it up outside. If the weather, if it wasn't like a blizzard out, you know what I'm saying? So we would be like, you would come up to me, you ain't getting in either. And I'm like, I'm not in, man. He's like, and we would just start talking because we'd be like, sometimes you would have to wait it out to get in because you need to see somebody. You had to see somebody come out and you're like, yo, you'd be like, that person that came out, you're like, yo, tell this dude, the door guy, that I'm in because there's a disconnect here. So I could honestly, I think like at least 8 or 10 times, me and Premier would be asked out of the club outside. And me and him would just be like, but the thing is, I can't believe he wasn't in. I'm literally there like, man, they ain't letting you. And I would get like kind of emotional because I would be like, no, I don't even care about me at this point.
Yeah, but you're from the era where you were getting into a lot of hot spots because of just who you were. So, you know what I mean? During that time, because you got to remember the DJs, like you said, we lived a disco era. You know what I'm saying? Like disco is a big deal for me. I mean, because obviously, even I remember when they did the disco sucks at the football stadium.
Chicago.
I was like, yo, who cares if y'all don't like it? This is a thing for us, and that is the connection of transitioning into the boom bap 4/4 rhythm of slowing it down into 90s and different tempos. But again, we shared the same apartment, quote unquote, when it came to the house family and the hardcore hip hop. All in the same club, and it wasn't like, well, fuck y'all and fuck y'all. They were like, yo, what up, man? And when the house records came on, the hard motherfuckers was in that too, bopping their head like, oh, this is my joint. But I learned from moving to New York that I got to get up on the house stuff because I used to go to all the house spots, on the weekdays. Wasn't the garage the one that's in Union Square?
No, that was Union Square was
back when Craze and all that stuff.
Talking about Union Square Ballroom and downstairs, the Union Square Ballroom.
Yeah,
but like below coffee shop almost.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was a crazy spot.
That was the spot. And I used to go with Total Science because they knew people. I didn't know the house. And Gangstar I hadn't joined Gangstar yet. I was still shopping my deal.
Yeah. That's crazy.
The good old days.
Yeah. Do you remember Ego Trip? Do you remember Ego Trip back then?
Of course. The magazine?
No, the club. Ego Trip.
What street was that?
I'm not gonna remember the address right now, but it was the era of basically like when it was that time in New York when like hot music was out by Pal Joey, and it was just like you were getting like
the building was popping.
Base Hit. Did you go to Base Hit?
Absolutely.
Base Hit. Okay, yeah.
And obviously the building with my former manager, Moxie, was one of the owners, so. Gangstar used we used to go in there 100 deep and get in free.
Yeah, Base Hit was like a perfect club.
No,
it was like, what's that? Yeah,
that's cool. I'll come in after Armand.
Oh, okay, no worries. Real quick, I just remember Base Hit being like that club. It was like what you just explained.
Did you go to Mars?
Oh yeah, I went to Mars. I went to Mars
in the Meatpacking District.
Yeah, and then they turned it into the Vault or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That was a crazy club.
Yeah, man.
Do you remember the doorman at Mars?
Nah.
Awesome. I remember somebody brought it to my attention. I totally forgot it was Vin Diesel.
Fuck out of here. You know what? He was around that time though. Yeah. He was him and even from CNC Music Factory. Freedom.
Robert Clavillis?
No, Freedom Williams.
Oh, Freedom.
Yo, he was really a part of the raw, hardcore shit back then. He was there. Yeah. Vin Diesel definitely was there. Sure.
That's funny.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was going to bring up the Patrick Moxie connection too, because I think Armand and I, when we started kicking it and eventually formed Duck Sauce, like I think a lot of what we have in common is this sort of like hip hop and house, connection. And Preem, I remember when I when I was growing up, I saw you I thought you were sort of strictly this hip hop dude. And then at one point I learned that your ex-manager, Patrick Moxie, who on one hand had Payday Records, was also the man behind Ultra and all this house shit. So like, you just mentioned you used to go to house parties to house clubs with Moxie in them, or what?
Heavy. And then he knew all the spots that you like, Two Eyes and what was next to Two Eyes? Nels.
Yeah.
These are places. Another one that is like you can't getting in there.
No, I know. But Pal Jovi's a DJ Nels. Like it was one of the nights or something
and then you go right over to Two Eyes, which is right next door, and it was two different types of spots, but Patrick at that time, looked like a model, the slick back hair. Yeah. And he used to always come in with fly women all the time.
That's very true.
And he always made sure me and Guru were straight too. He's like, yo, her friends are coming too. And, so we like, we got one of the coolest, man. And Patrick started with the club, the Payday. That's how it started anyway.
Oh, okay.
Payday, they would always move to a different location. You had to know the scene and know where it moved to. Mm-hmm. And he would be the one working the door. And he said he wanted to treat it like Studio 54, where it's like, no, you in, not you. You dressed the part. It doesn't mean you're meant to be in.
Getting in, that time.
Yeah, it was an eclectic crowd and all hip hop, strictly hip hop.
Yeah.
So he comes from that.
Yeah, that's true.
That's dope.
Shout out to Patrick. I saw P last year. We're still in touch all the time. So
yeah,
that's good.
One thing I wanted to bring up also is DJ AM. I think when AM was kind of like at his apex, at his heyday, you used to go and watch him spin a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious what your AM and I were close friends when he was alive too, and I saw a lot of the ways that he changed the scene. But for you being kind of his OG, you being from a previous generation from him, what was your read on him? What was your impression on him? Like, what were you thinking when you saw him spin?
Well, for one, I met him when he was 14.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, he was on tour with Alchemist, Scott Kahn. They were the Hooligans.
That's right. Okay.
They were on tour with Cypress Hill and House of Pain had just dropped Jump Around, so it was it just become that biggest record. And I went to the concert, met Alchemist, AM, and Scott, and I had a big giant blunt. And I never forget, me and Alchemist always talk about this and say, yo, you want to hit this? He's like, yo, that is the biggest blunt I ever smoked. And I smoked with him and AM, obviously these we how weed is. It's never been a bad thing. And so we puffed, enjoy watching the rest of the show, and then fast forward a few more years, AM and I did Limp Bizkit's Playboy Pajama Party. Okay. This is when Limp Bizkit was not to be fucked with their popularity. And Fred Durst hired me to be the DJ for the Playboy Mansion before Serato and all this stuff. Actually, it was on March 9th, the first year of Biggie's passing. It was on 9th, It was the first year anniversary because I wore a Remember Biggie shirt. And I have a picture of me, rest in peace, headquarters. He was in the picture with me. But I remember me and AM, this is how we got close. He came in while we're setting up because we were there early to make sure everything's working right. And he goes, yo, man, you mind if I practice for a little while before you go on so I can make sure I'm ready when I come on after you? And I'm like, if you're a real DJ, you don't never need to be able to, need to practice the day of your gig. And he said that resonated with him the rest of his life. And we became just cool after that. And every time I came to LA, I'd call him. He would always know Prince is going to be in a private spot at the Roxy tonight. You want to go? Hell yeah. I got to go to AA. So why don't you hold my car and just come pick me up from AA and he'll go to AA and I'll come back and pick him up. He's like, yo, this is what I'm going to play. And I'll be creating these things called mashups. And he was just so ahead, and really he was addicted to DJing, forget all the, drug addiction and everything else. He was addicted to DJing and making people feel good, man. So, and then it was fucked up because right when we were about to do the launch of our sneakers, he's the one that talked me into doing it. And they were called Rivals. I did the Air Force One and he did a Dunk. And we went out to eat with Eclipse, DJ Finesse, AM, somebody else. We all sat together, and he goes, "Well, here's how I'm gonna do my shoe." And I was like, "Well, I've never created a shoe." He said, "No, it's gonna be easy. It's gonna be fun because Nike gave us the materials to make it. It was like maybe 4 or 5 things, and they were like, you gotta make the shoe out of these things." Then for AM, same thing. But the Dunk, here are your materials. Make it however you want, but out of these materials. He took his shoe off at the dinner table and said, "I'm gonna put the platter dots from the turntable around the edges." I was like, ooh, you know, because he's a sneaker junkie. You know, his sneaker game was nuts. I've never done one. So for him, I'm like, damn, man, I got to figure out how to make mine fly. We finally did it, and Nike approved it. He was like, "Yo, ain't you excited? We're gonna be doing launch party. We're gonna be DJing together." I'm like, "Hell yeah!" And then all of a sudden, I get a call that he passed the day we were supposed to go to Vegas because we're doing 3 launches. The first launch, he missed the flight, and they went to go check on him and see why he missed the flight, and that's when they found him passed away.
Oh shit!
So crazy. I still did the promo, but it sucked because it was like, damn, it was called Rivals. He represented the West, I represented the East.
Right.
Crazy
That's
shit.
Crazy.
Yeah. So it was definitely a hurtful loss for many people, especially if you knew him like the way you know him and I know him. Like we know him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I knew about his crack addiction. Me and him have had talks. Yeah. I told him about the things I used to do in the past that he couldn't believe, and I was comfortable telling him about it so that he can know. Yeah. We've all been through roads, man. But you know, I'm so proud. He told me about the plane crash, yo. Like, what it was like. I didn't even want. I was just like, yo, I know that must have been crazy. He goes, yo, let me tell you what happened. And you would think he wouldn't even want to talk about that. Or man, it haunts me. He told it like if it was him telling a joke to somebody. Like, let me tell you this joke, or something he heard. That he told it that relaxing, and then from there. He was like, yo, always fly commercial, don't go on private planes. I'm like, I've never been on a PJ anyway in my career. But he told me that, man. I mean, we've had some crazy talks, you know what I'm saying? But salute to him.
He's always super open like that, for sure.
Yeah.
I was like, that was
bad. I knew him when he was slim, everything.
Yep. Actually, it's, speaking of people that we miss, Armand's new guru, I think, right?
Yeah.
Armand?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, me and Guru what's crazy is me and Guru had we kind of first time I ever built with him. He was doing a show, the Jasmine Test show in Istanbul. And I was DJing, and he was with like Nadia Davenport from Brand New Heavies. And a bunch of other heads, of course. He had the whole thing, but I didn't know everybody. We had an amazing dinner together, and so here's the thing. It's interesting story. It's a quick story. This is your interview, but this is kind of funny. But
we're all connected, man.
Yeah. So Guru, I was kind of like the first time I was building with him, and just kind of chopping it up, and I come to realize what an immense gentleman he is. Like his manners. I've never met anybody with his manners in my life. Right. Like he is like anybody. When I'm talking with him and some of his people, whoever, like a crew of his people came in, I had to meet everybody. He introduced every single person to me. Yep. He's like, no, this is Armand, biggest DJ in the world. I mean, you know how he is. I'm not the biggest DJ in the world, but thank you. And so he's just like, yeah. And it's just, but the thing is, so at that particular time frame in my life, I have a hip hop soul and kind of like, I ended up in house music, right? But I always kind of wanted to be a U or a Timbaland or a Pharrell. Basically, that's the truth. So, but I wasn't good at it, so I ended up in house music.
Dude, your mixes, to have an Armand Van Helden mix of anything, like I have a folder because I call Riz, yo, you have any Armand Van Helden stuff I ain't got, and we'll run through the folder and stuff because be it a remix or just one of your own releases. It's like to me, you approach it like a hip hop producer.
I try, yeah.
For sure.
We know if your name's on it, it's going to be good already. That was one thing I always wanted to build with my career as well I wanted to build my career like a Def Jam record. Oh, it's Def Jam. Just buy it. It's going to be dope.
Yeah.
Premier did it. It's dope. Yeah. Marley Marl did it. It's dope. Armand Van Helden, anything that had your name or a remix, it was like, it's going to be dope. Like you're guaranteed to, we trust what you're going to bring to it once you go in and get down for real.
Cool. Thank you, man.
Not because you're on here. I'd say I know. Putting on here.
Well, thank you, man. I mean, the same goes for you. My goodness. I mean, forget about it. But back to the guru thing. So what it was is like, so hip hop culture in itself had a certain attitude that you carried with yourself. In the 90s, let's just say, which I'm talking, this kind of went down the 90s or very late 90s, but still all through the 90s, I fell into a genre of music that was associated with gay culture. I was never in that pocket. So I always felt like somewhat alienated. Like I'm a hip hop guy, ended up in house music, but all my hip hop friends, they're like, why you mess with that gay music? You know how it was back then. You know how it was back then. That was the truth. So
that was the stigma.
So exactly. Yeah. And so it was like, it wasn't the truth. It was, exactly. But I'm just saying, but Guru showed me something from a hip hop perspective that I had kind of a chip on my shoulder. Cause I was like, so when I dealt with house people, I was like still trying to stay hip hop and make sure I represented hip hop in all of house culture at all times.
Right.
But Guru was like, it ain't hip hop or house. Just be a good person, be a gentleman. And he changed me in that moment. I'll never forget about that, because from that point on, like when people came up to me, said something to me, and like, let's just say they were from my genre, from house music, and I never really like respected him. Guru respected everybody. He didn't care if he just met you in 1 second. He was just astounding. I've never met a person like that in my life. And I just thought it'd be cool to mention that.
From a different cloth, though.
He changed me. He changed me.
Yeah,
he wanted me to be a better person with the way I met people or had acquaintances and whatnot. That's so it's just like,
we're a rare breed, man. We're a rare breed. And I'm glad we all exist, all of us, doing what we do. Even when I did a gig with a-trak recently this year, and, two different, it was a blend of crowds, but it didn't matter where you went with it. They was totally with it because we know how to provide the proper energy for them. Same thing with hip hop, and Armin, I know you and I are older. Are you you at 50 yet?
50.
Yeah, I'm 54.
There we go.
Think about it. We didn't have scratching and cutting and mixing as youngsters. No. You know what I'm saying? And all that working faders. No. We just had that. Like I said, you had the Eagles, you had the Jackson 5, you had Marvin Gaye,
Steely Dan.
Yeah, Steely Dan. That's all. So it was all at that same time. So we had nothing else to reference. So, and rock, I remember when Soul Train had David Bowie and he did Fame. It's like,
Fame. I
love
Bowie's
that. On Soul Train. And the Jets.
Elton John did Soul Train.
Was like, Elton John's on Soul Train because we only expect to see black people only. Doobie Brothers. Average White Band. And that also said was, and again, that's what we had.
Doobie Brothers on What's Happening.
Yeah. And
they remember that? But they incorporated them. They incorporated the Doobies.
And he dropped the tape recorder and got caught bootlegging.
So Rerun goes to record the concert, the Doobies concert. So they're like in the episode. It's awesome.
That's it. Wow. So, great episode. It was a 2-part episode too.
Yeah. Well,
we were like, oh no, Rerun's in trouble. Yeah, man.
So I got a quickie question it's a little extensive, but it's something that I ran it by. We and a-trak talked about it, but I'm going to take a look at it real quick. But I thought this was.
I just noticed that you have mass appeal.
Back there, yeah. All right,
shit, come clean.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is pretty special.
See, I could just DJ shit. You could just help out a stick and that was the promo.
Oh, that's a test pressing.
Test pressing. Specialty records.
Wow. So, but
one above your head before you ask the question. What's the one right there? White one.
KRS.
The white one. The white one.
Das Effects, dude.
Real hip hop.
Mine's black. Yeah, see, mine's black with the same sticker.
I had the black one too. That's funny.
Yeah, mine's black with the same sticker.
Well, I got the white
one. That Pete Rock remix was crazy too on that 12-inch. By the way.
Yeah. Shout out to Pete.
Yeah.
So what I was gonna tell you was, ask you was, let me just take a look again. Okay. So kind of a thing that I mentioned at a-trak, like in sampling in general, right? So sampling is something that you've done it obviously even before I was doing it, but I now that I've been doing it for so long and you have as well, I actually equate it to martial arts because it's like, in a sense, it's like a skill. So the longer you do it, in a sense, the better you get at it. It's like a sport. Like, so like if somebody gives somebody like a kid a sampler right now, his first sample, it's going to be, he's going to loop something. It's going to be probably horrendous. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. Right. So one of my things was modern hip hop now. Right. And so what it is basically like, do you think because the modern generation is too lazy and they don't want to put the time in to understand how to sample correctly? Is that why most of modern hip hop is sample free these days? What's your take on that?
It could come from a few different angles, because one, they didn't grow up on that sound. So the sound that they feel like works, and like you said, they don't know how to do it. No one's showing them how to do it. So the appreciation's not there because no one's even putting them on it. Because I hate when people say, I'm younger, so I don't know that world. You're never too late to know, because if that was the case, why did we like Curtis Mayfield, who's probably was, in his 30s going into his 40s when I was a teenager? Or no, not a teenager, wasn't even a teen yet. But I'm not like, I don't like that because that's not kiddie music. I can relate to it because it was being put on to me around who I was around. Not to say that these kids' parents weren't brought up in the 90s era and stuff like that, but I don't think it's being taught to them the same way. And MCA made a good point. He just did No Jumper with the Adam 22. And he was just saying that he thinks usually it's the other way around, where they're, and not all, but he says some of them are more almost like against the older generation, because for one, they don't know how to do it that way. And number two, he said, we're from the same block, I'm older than you, but I've been around here before you were a baby, and now you're on the block selling your product. Don't be mad because my product still moves to the clientele I have. My clientele still likes it the way I boom bap it, so I still make it that way. If I couldn't sell it, not even one copy, or I lost interest in that style, I'll leave it alone. I still like it, just as a fan. I still want it. I always take myself out of the equation of being me and go, damn, what I still want to get that versus the newest stuff. The newest stuff is just a whole different, and I embrace some of it. You know what I'm saying? I love Roddy Ricch. I like Dub Baby and Lil Baby. There's just certain artists I like. I like Pop Smoke, God bless them. But I won't make that style because I don't have to, because my clientele still likes the way I cook my shit. So, and that's what I was saying. When H said that on this new interview he just dropped, he said, it's nothing wrong with us still selling our product to the audience, to the clientele we have. Don't be like, y'all need to stop and retire. No, we might get yours and mine, but I'm not changing the fact that the people that still want it from me, I'm not going to serve them no more. I'm going to keep making it for them. That's why when we did Gangstar, I said, we'll be fine, because after all these years of not being out, the people that are diehard fans are going to be like, oh, I'm checking this out. They're not going to be like, let's wait to hear it to make sure it sounds good first. Because I would never, I always want the trust of my production and what I do to always remain just like a classic restaurant. There's the Cat's
that's a good
Deli.
way to look at it.
I'm a Cat's Deli. That deli's still there. You know what I'm saying? And
there's always someone that wants the Reuben and that wants the
and the pastrami.
That's a great analogy. Yeah,
I'm the pastrami.
Do you think it'll come back around again? Basically,
I don't think it ever left, because
let's just say
there's still producers that do
95. But I mean, in a sense, you think like 95 will be like the sound of the next wave, and like every 18-year-old rapper wants to sound like the beats from 95. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you think that's going to come around again?
That's already coming around. Yeah.
It's already started.
I say this because I can't mention certain things, but I'm already getting calls where they're like, yo, do it the way you do it. Right. That's what I liked about Ferg. Ferg didn't have a record like Our Streets on Payday. when I saw him and he said, yeah, let's do it. First thing he said to me was, don't do, what I've done with all my hits. Do it the Preem way, and I'm going to rhyme your style. I want to show that I'm versatile with my pen and how I flow. I was like, okay, cool. And he did it just real quick. I watched him write it and just right there and knock it out. And that record did good for us. We moved a lot of 12-inch vinyl of that. That thing moved a lot. Yeah, and even you know what I'm saying, even the views are high on that, and that's totally the style of what I do. And he had fun with it. But again, he's from the era of when his father, who had the fur clothing and and all of that, he's been around that music, which is why it's. But he's like still doing the newer styles of what's popular to the youth, but he still won't abandon what he was raised on, And some people do it because they want to keep up with to be relevant. I don't worry about all that. I just know my radio show is dedicated to that. Live from headquarters. Every Tuesday that we do on Shade 45 on Sirius XM is me breaking all new shit that's just dropped, and everything's available. When I send my playlist out, you ain't gotta look it up and go, damn, I can't find any of this. Everything's available and everything's new at the same time of everything on the radio.
Yeah. Shout out to Ferg. That's definitely a close friend of the whole crew here.
Oh yeah, great dude, man. His whole and shout to his uncle. Don't say it. T Nice and rest in peace, his father, who's a big deal, man.
His dad designed the Bad Boy logo.
And D Ferg, man, you heard. Shout out to D Ferg. I was thinking that maybe we could wrap up in a couple of minutes. I would love to fan out with a couple of final questions. Just me geeking out on some of my favorite Premiere shit. Oh, good.
All right, thank you, Preem. One of my favorite productions of yours was the remix that you did for Janet Jackson. It was called the one.
Together Again.
Together Again.
Right.
Just the Bass remix.
Right.
I have a question about that because of the way it was called Just the Bass. Because I have a guess about that track and I want to see if I guessed it right.
Okay.
By any chance, when you made that remix, was it a thing where you had other elements of music and then you ended up muting it and only keeping the drums and the bass?
Mm-hmm.
That was.
If you listen to the remix with all the music, you can still hear that boom, boom.
Yeah.
The boom, boom. Yeah. It's just take the sample out.
You just right.
Yeah.
It's funny because Armand and I had a similar thing. Our track "Big Bad Wolf" originally had a sample in it, and then Armand muted the sample. We only kept the bass line and the drums. And that was the final version that came out. And I always wondered that about your Janet Jackson.
And it popped off. Yeah, well, that was my second time doing it. I did it with D'Angelo first on Lady Remix.
Oh, okay.
And I did just the beat. Just the beat. And that's the one that ended up being the video.
With AZ or who was on it?
Yeah, with AZ rapping.
With AZ, yeah.
Yep. And because I have two versions. I have a version that I did with this guy named Absolute, who was one of the guys that rapped on. He's from the Bronx, from 183rd. And
okay,
I was kind of at the time. I was kind of mentoring him because I liked the way his voice sounded when he rhymed, and I never heard him rap. And he rapped on "Sacrifice" on
Group Home, right?
Yeah, that's him rhyming first. And so when D'Angelo asked me to remix it, he did a dope rhyme to the song, and they were like, we don't want to use him because he's your, if he's your artist, so to speak. AZ is a label made of D'Angelo and Do or Die's coming out, and
right,
we wanted to coincide, and I was like, all right, cool. I understand the politics of that, so we ran with the AZ version, and then when I did Janet, I was like, yo, I'm gonna start doing that. I always do a regular version and then do just the beat. But since that one had the bass line, I said I'll call it
just the bass.
Use that one at on the American Music Awards. She opened up to my version.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, it's on YouTube and all of that. I
gotta check that.
I was supposed to do the show with her, and she told me we can't go live. It's going to be like,
with the playback.
Yeah, it's playback.
Right,
and I was like, damn, my first time on stage. And I'm going to be on the turntable, but I wanted to go live. I can't do it. And I was like, fuck. And I didn't do it.
That's
my mother, God bless her soul. She's like, how you gonna say you're not doing Janet Jackson on the man? You stupid. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm sorry. I wish I did it.
Yeah.
Salute to Janet, man. She's one of the most iconic, incredibly ill artists ever in the history of music, man.
For sure.
So, all right, another question. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up. I don't know if you realize, Preem, I hope you know, that to the scratch DJ community, to the people that sort of I came up with, and you mentioned earlier that you've never really battled, and there's a lot of, turntablists that do the crazy fast flares and crabs and shit, but we all idolize your scratches because your cuts are so funky and your cuts sound like they're part of the music. I always felt like you're the best for like a scratch hook because it never sounded like a solo. It never sounded like you were showing off. It always just felt like it was part of the beat. So I don't know if you had any, I don't even really have a specific question. I wanted to just give you your flowers as the DJ that has the funkiest cuts.
It's for the DJ. Everything is for the DJ when I do that. Yeah. And I just like
it's also it's your timing though. Like his your natural rhythm is not normal. Like your pocket. You're like it's your pocket. You would be like a pocket drummer if you were a drummer.
Well, I wish I could go bam, 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 bam. I wish I could do that. And I'm not good with my left. I always do the crossover on the left turntable because everybody's like, man, why don't you put it back to when you had two turntables on the right and on the side? Yeah. I said I could still do that, but you know what stopped me from doing that? Because every time we'd have a gig, if I was headlining, they're like, well, we're going to have to stop the music, break it down, put it back your way. And I'm like, I don't want the music to stop and transition. Yeah. I'll just leave it up and I'll do it that way. And I'll just start crossing over. And that's really where it came from because I don't want to stop in the middle of a crowd where now we got to stop. The music stops, there's nothing playing, and now we're moving things. Right. And now it's not set the exact way I had it at sound check because I like going to sound check all the time. Make sure it's taped down right. Let me see the table, the height of like everything has to be right before I go on because I know my energy once it's go time and I want to give them what they paid for. So I gotta be there. So I didn't want them to be like, and sometimes they're like, oh, well, that's your set. No one's touching it. They're going to be on that set over there. Okay, cool. But other than that, nah, I gotta just. And even battle style was never my style. It's got to be battle style now. It has to. I'm comfortable that way. Now the regular way, only when I lay scratches in the other room just to lay cuts, to do scratch hooks and stuff. Mm-hmm. I always wanted to be like a lead guitarist. When you give him his solo and he plays and it's always everybody's air guitar in that solo. That's how I wanted it to be with scratch and the hook, where you move your hand. Same thing with videos when people have me in it. I'm like, yo, you have to edit. If you're going to, I don't care where you put me, but make sure I am moving the exact same way as the record because I'm going to do it exactly like the record. And because sometimes they'll show me doing this and it's not even a scratch going on. Because I watch videos.
Sometimes I'll say that like the best scratch parts on records, you got to be able to sing them. Like a fan is going to be able to sing it back. And right. And then the way that you would always have the funk in it, I could scratch any of yours. So I could verbalize. I could beatbox or sing your scratch solo.
Right. That's like I do the tribute to in my gigs. I always do the Eric B for President. I do the end of the scratch at Paid in Full, and I salute Eric B. And I'm doing exactly this stuff. Even this to the same thing. Same
All right. So. And the last thing I wanted to bring up, because this is something I've heard you say. What's up?
That's all you guys. One more.
We can keep going. But the last thing that I wanted to make sure I say, because I mentioned this to Armand earlier, and we were just bugging out at this when we were talking, is I've heard you say, Preem, that most of the tracks that you've made for rappers, you've made them on the spot at the studio for them. That you don't, right? Like you don't
every time.
You don't, right? Like they don't show up and listen to 20 beats from you. They might. I feel like I've heard you say something like, maybe Jay-Z or whoever would like tell you the verse so you know the cadence and the tempo of it, and you would say, "Come back in a couple hours," and you would find something to chop based on, right?
100%.
I just wanted to have that in our interview because I want everybody to hear this because
that's why it's different from me because Guru always called me. He said, "Man, you're a beat tailor," because he said it's like if somebody walks in.
A beat tailor.
Yeah. He says like if somebody comes in heavyweight and you want him to do this suit, I'll be like, "Yo, don't put him in that suit. I put him in this suit, and then this person put him in that suit." He says like I know how to tailor it to you because I'm thinking. This sounds good to your voice. I'm into the voice a lot. That's why mostly the voice is one of my favorite songs because Guru was like, I never heard his voice like that before. Like for an MC, I was like, your voice is different. I didn't even know he was from Boston. I just said, you sound so different. And when we met, it was like, yo, I want to make this beat. And the first beat I gave him was Manifest. And he was like, yo, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, and by the way, Group Home, I think the Group Home album is one of the greatest hip hop albums ever. And as a body of work, it's incredible. And sometimes I'll hear some of the heads kind of debate and people sometimes criticize. Sometimes people criticize Dap and Malachi for their raps being pretty simple. But I always felt like it had to be something about their voice because they have very unique voices, both of them, especially Dap.
It was that, and we're still family. And if they're coming under our umbrella, we making sure we make bangers with them too because they're part of our crew. Wu-Tang was spawning off Ghost and U-God and Deck and Ray and
not to mention Killer Army and
exactly.
Like the other dudes.
Killer Priest, Sons of Man, Killer Priest. So if you're coming out of our stable, they got to have jams too, and we perfected it with what the best we could, and I felt like every track matched what they sounded like. I think I'm good at matching the ear of sound to the artist. That's I feel like even when they disagree on certain beats, I'm just like, I think that's the one, man. He never gave me that problem. Jay-Z never gave me. I never made a beat with Jay. Like, nah. Big, same thing. Yep. Nas, yep. And I still have that same excitement when I go in and make a joint. It's still fun to go in and make another joint.
It's interesting thinking about it that way though, because most people listen to the record looking for a sample and then a lot of producers will stay they'll stay at the mercy of the sample. They'll keep the sample as a loop. They'll keep it the way it was on the record because they're listening to the record almost too much. And I feel like the way that you say you do it, you've got an idea in your head of some sort of maybe a cadence or some sort of chop that you already have it in your head. So where you're dropping the needle is just to match something that's in your head. Right. So you're not looping the record. You got something.
He's a DJ. Dude, it's all DJ mentality for me.
I mean, I remember when I heard the sample from Can't Stop the Prophet. Like at the end of a record, like right before the fade out, and I was like, how did he think of going there? But it just seemed you probably just
J-Ru did the same thing to the almost with Guru. He always gives me a list of the entire album in note order and little notes of what he wants it to be about. That's it.
Wow.
And he always says, no matter how many albums we do, let's always make sure we do one for chicks. And let's always make sure we do what he calls rhyming joints, which is where it's just bragging about how nice you can rap. So we always have done that. My C's is just a rhyming joint.
Yeah.
Ass Appeal's a rhyming joint.
Yeah.
Dwick, rhyming joint.
Scientifical Madness, like those kinds of.
Full Clip, rhyming joint.
Yeah.
Everything is just him bragging about, I rap nice. We're doper than you. We're ill. Yeah. But then we'll have one for chicks. We always do X Girl. We do She Knows What She Wants. We do Love Sick. We do and then then the rest of them he says you got to have at least one story about something that happened that people could relate to in the story. But the rest of it is just filling in his titles and making the music match the titles. But say like with a J. Rue, he told me he wanted to do the one about Prophet. So again, if you describe it for me, I think I can come up with the theme music and hit it the first time. Every time. There's certain times like, nah, that's not it. Do another one. If it takes me more than 3 times, we're done with it. Either we come back to it at the end of the album or something, but I rarely have that problem.
Yeah, that's great.
Rarely. Maybe 3 if it's not the first time, hitting it the second time, I usually get it. And it's very rare. Like I said, if it's 3 times, I'm like, yo, man, I ain't meant to do this one. Prophet,
yeah, man, just at the end of or even the sample for Superstar, I remember hearing that and being like, how did you go from that to this? But
DJ shit, man.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know how it is how other people think, but for one, I'm always got my hand on it while I got if I have the drums going first and the tempo that I kind of want to be at, and I already knew this is around the time the speed it should be to get a record that'll be playable for DJs to spin. That comes into it too, and then you could just kind of and then you put it in the machine, start saying, let me interpret it, but the whole way it's playing is from me taking parts, and then when you hear the brand, we just like, damn, how can I make that work? Because that sounds dope. Let me throw it in there, and then I started just doing it until it just sounded like it was right, and then you do a test recording of it in the MP, and to get it perfected, and then you're like, that's the track. So same approach to this very day.
That's cool.
Yeah, please don't change it.
Never.
Exactly.
Never. But that's the only way I know. So even if it's monotonous to other people where they're like, man, he always does the same. I don't give a fuck. Shit. Always
it's like, hey, it's like you said, look this way. And, I lived in Italy for a time, and when you do Italy, they don't ever change the plates. Like when they make a plate and it's perfected, it's for life. Like that plate ain't changing.
They don't bring the new specials on the menu.
No. They like, this is perfect. You're gonna enjoy it. That's all you got to know.
That's what I like what Abe was saying about the younger generation. We embrace everything they do. Some of it I like, some of it I don't like. Some of it we don't like from our era. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
Yo, speaking of what you were talking about, Out of Here, back the original version of Out of Here, he names all the groups. It was the way I'm going, Chris. Them two, yes, out of here. I was like, damn. And then rest in peace, Willie D. That used to be with BDP, not the Willie D from the Ghetto Boys. Salute to him as well. He was only going, Chris, take the names out. Everybody gonna be really hurt if you mention all those. And he was mentioning everybody.
Wow.
And he was like, all right, Will is like, yo, nah, be easy. So now we just did material things and stuff like that. And Range Rover Out of Here.
That's right.
Yeah, but the original, he was naming mad people that you would have been like, no, man, everybody's going to hate us. I mean, I didn't say it, but it was just the fact that this was going to be the first, and that was the first beat I made for him on Boom Bap. He was like, yo, we're going with this right now.
and the expression Boom Bap comes from that album title, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd never heard of it, but he called it that. I'm like, yo. And then we was like, yo, let's do Return of the Boom Bip. We did like 3 beats and I saw him one time probably in the last 10 years since then. But we even did little skits and everything where we would call Q-Tip and have Q-Tip on the phone going about like, what are we going to name it? And Q-Tip will be on the phone while we're talking. He'll go, yo, call it Return of the Boom Bip. He'll be like, like, but boom, but bip. That would be the way to start the whole album.
Right.
After we can't still do that. Yeah. But, and KRS came with a tape recorder, the old style ones used to put by the speaker so you can record shit. He came with a tape recorder like that saying, yo, we're going to do it all on this tape recorder, these skits.
That's cool.
That's funny.
Shout out to KRS.
Man.
Master. Yeah, man. Stories for days.
Shout out to you, Preem. Thank you for doing this.
Dude, definitely, man. Yeah. So awesome.
Anytime. Well, it's good. It was a good talk with you fellas. And I know Sammy can't be seen, but we see Sammy.
We see Sammy.
What up, Preem?
What up, bro? and everything that there's a lot of people have been asking, like, what's up with certain projects. I had told, shout to Ian Schwartzman, shout to Keeg, shout to everybody. One of the things that our plan was before we even knew COVID was going to shut things down was all my side projects. I don't even call them side projects, but my year-round label stuff. You know, people always even comment, when are you going to drop NYGs? When are you going to drop re-release collection with Bumpy Knuckles? Because it's not on iTunes anymore. Because now we own it. So now we were like, yo, since we own it, let's re-release it and put 5 new songs that we had started working on that didn't make that weren't on anything, and put those on the album as bonuses. So not only the people that never heard it or got it can get it from streaming and everything, they'll also get 5 new songs. And then NYG's, you know, same thing with Shot to Panchi, Shabino. That's a project of mine that came through Guru first. They were called Operation Ratification on Ill Kid Records. And then he wanted help with getting them to the next point. And I said, I'll do it, because we were friends from living in their neighborhood, you know. So when it came down to that, the first album came out in 2008, was more of a compilation that Panch actually put together. And I just added my songs to it. But I was on tour for an extensive amount of time, and he arranged it, him and King of Chill, to get it all done. And then I just mixed it from there and got the songs ready to roll. And then we always talked about doing an official all premiere album, just like I've done with all the other artists. And there was always something that would get in the way of getting it completed. And I would get all the backlash from everybody. And you're taking forever. And I said, this year, after dropping Gangstar, everything that's meant to come out for 2020 is coming out, and the other projects that are on the menu as well. I want it all out. So I'm just in a real excited, just focus mode to get so many different things out. Albums, a lot of good stuff this year. I'm like really excited, even with all the setbacks and not being able to meet up with everybody.
Do you feel like you want to release them immediately now, or wait till the clubs are open? Because that's now. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. But I feel like for us, we should all have been recording shit during this time. Like we have.
We have. For sure.
Like you gotta be ready to pull the trigger with this music. We have no excuse to be waiting for anything. This is, I think this spread up a lot of artists that I won't even mention that on a very high scale that I've been in communication with, that are doing a lot of stuff now, because even they can't tour or do this, that, and the third. So everybody's like, yo, let's record.
Yeah.
Good time, man.
It is good time.
Well,
do we all do dun 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 good? Just like Bounce Rock Skate. Do we all do come on and get down? Like, do we all start from feel the body? You know what I mean? Like, there's those little parts that we all like. Rock the Bells. I'm sure you got a Rock the Bells version of Rock the Bells, right? And, you know, like there's just certain records. I remember when Mr. Walt and Evil D, shout to the Beat Miners. I was at their house one day and I was like, yo, they had just got Serato, and they were dumping all their vinyl versions of the songs because they had already put them on CDs. So when he did Bounce Rock Skate, he did with Bounce Rock Skate, their vinyl version was so worn in, and it said, come on, and down. It was just down. And the thing is, I'm sure they're not the only person that has a copy like that. But that's how it sounds. And down. Like, that's how much we have rubbed that part of the record in. That get down part. So, you know, rock the bell same way. Cock the bell. The bells. The bells.
All right, Preem. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Anytime.
Thank you, man.
Good to talk to DJs. Great. And even Jimmy's a DJ.
Hey, you know it.
Yeah, he knows how to turn on the power switch.
There you go.
Well, thanks for having me, man. Anytime.
Yeah, for sure.
You know how we do.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right.
Thank you, Kareem.
Cool.
Hey.
Thank you, man.
Guys.
Cool. I know.